Transforming your green screen footage from this to this is now easier than ever. Finding the perfect background for your green screen used to mean one thing, and that is spending hours on the internet to get a matching background. But now with AI, we can train models to analyze our green screen footage and make a matching background for us. So that's exactly what I did for this video. I customized a tool in Claude to create matching backgrounds, and it automatically analyzes our green screen shot. And I found with this method, it saves a ton of time because we don't have to reiterate and create multiple images to get the right background image. And everything I showcase here, you can try it out 100% for free inside the VFX Basecamp, which is my new school community where you can bring your actual setup, your projects, and we can give constructive feedback and just make awesome looking visuals with a whole group of people who do the exact same thing. I will also share long form content in there if you're interested in VFX, filmmaking, virtual production, and all that stuff. Here's what most people do. They put in a vague prompt in ChatGPT or Midjourney, and then they have a result with minimal control. And if you want to change stuff, we need to remove the subject from the foreground. We need to put in multiple prompts to get the actual image that we want for the background. And the problem isn't the image generation, most of the time it's just the prompt itself. You have to make a prompt that is built 100% around your specific shot. And that's why I built this customized tool in Claude. It's sort of like a prompt engineering assistant that thinks like a filmmaker and VFX artist. And it also takes into account the real lighting you have on set. For the lighting, it's very simple. I just have two lights set up right here. One is the softbox, aperture 120D. And then on the right here, we have our backlight. And this will help separate the subject from the background, and it just adds a nice rim lighting. And then of course we have some natural light coming in from the window. This will act as our fill light or ambient light. And this will also help light the green screen from the natural light and the softbox. But what if you have no lights available and no green screen? So now we have no lights in the scene, no green screen, just some natural light coming in from the window. And we can still make something from this because we can relight our entire shot with no green screen, no lights applied, with all the latest relighting capabilities. But this requires a lot of AI power, and it's still not efficient like we have a green screen and some lighting. Here we are in the backdrop generator, and I built this app entirely from Claude. It's pretty crazy what you can do nowadays, but so basically how it works is in 4 steps. First you have your scene preferences, which we can set here below, and then we can copy our prompt and paste it into Claude. It's pretty simple, but I think it's much more intuitive to create your scenes this way than prompting for hours and hours. So for this, I'm gonna set the environment to a recording studio. You have all sorts of environments you can choose from. You can even use custom and then input a reference frame or say something in your notes right here. For our case, I will use a recording studio. And then for the mood, I want something clean and professional looking. Color temperature, you can choose whatever you want, but I will say match subject exactly. For the objects, you can say which specific objects you want in the scene. You could say something like Marshall amp, neon sign, VFX. And in the notes, you can say whatever detail you want in your shot. It will also apply it in the prompt. Then for the focal length, you can choose match my shot. If you don't know the exact focal length of your lens, the AI will kind of guess what it was and prompt accordingly. But in our case, I used a 35mm, so I'm gonna select this, and also in the f-stop, I'm gonna choose 1.8. I will just use the normal circular depth of field, which is standard. If you want to prompt a reference frame for relighting, we can choose this tick box here, And then we have all sorts of lighting setups we can choose from. But for this example, I'm not going to use this now. And I'm just going to copy the prompt to clipboard. And now it's copied our prompt for us. And we need to paste this in Claude AI. Then in Claude, we can create a new chat. And then we can copy and paste this into the chat. Now we need to give the AI a little bit more context for the scene and the vibe we want. So we can add our reference image. So first our reference image from the original green screen shot. And we can even go to some recording studios and just use a still image as a reference, not to copy it, but just as reference for the vibe we want. So go ahead, copy the image and then paste it in Claude, just like this, and hit send in the chat. And now it's analyzing our inputs and also the reference images to create the best prompt possible. Here it's going to give you a shot analysis of the shot we want to create. And then we have prompt 1, prompt 2, and prompt 3. Grounded is just the standard one. Atmospheric will create some atmospheric effects into the scene. And dramatic will change the look, so it's a bit more harsh and dramatic looking. So I will select the prompt grounded. I will double click on it and then Command C to copy it. You could use any image generator and just paste the prompt and also put in your reference image like we did before. I always use Nano Banana Pro because I think it's the best model as of today, but you could also use the latest GPT Model 2. You can try out different ones, but I think Nano Banana Pro gives you the best results for now. I will select 2K resolution and then aspect ratio automatically because it will look at our reference image we input. Then input the image and the prompt and we can hit run model. And now we get a result like this, which is already pretty good. It did exactly like I wanted. I wanted to have the VFX logo and then our Marshall amp. We can even give much more instructions. This is just an example, but you can already see it can create what you have in mind. And I will even try this with Flux 2 Pro. This is another image model, and this will give you a bit more realistic results in terms of lighting. We can run the model and see what that is doing. And this is the image Flux 2 Pro created. And I have to say, this one looks a bit more realistic. And also the angle of the shot looks much better than I had in mind. So that's very usable in my opinion. Keep in mind, we're still gonna do some compositing with this. So we're gonna add some depth of field and other effects to really blend in that background. And I tried this multiple times with different settings and we could create all sorts of looks like this one, for example. This one was with Nano Banana, then the same prompt with ChatGPT. Then we can also create a vintage vibe, just like this, or even a forest or a hobbit-like scene. This is with Nano Banana Pro with ChatGPT, or a rooftop scene, which could also work very nice in this setting. And then I also tested out the relighting prompts. So this is what you will get when you do the relighting prompt. You will have your subject still in the frame, but it will do all the relighting for you. And you can use this reference frame to switch X, for example, to create an entire new scene with AI. If something is not right in your image, just double check your prompt and see if anything is off, or you can manually change it. For example, here we have this image made with Flux 2 Max. And let's say we want to have this water tower on the right instead of the left. I will make it very simple and make it 20% bigger. And also input your image and then run the model again. Notice that it changes the depth of field slightly. That is something we can also fix in DaVinci Resolve. Now here we are in DaVinci Resolve in the Fusion page, and we're going to use this software to composite the final shot together. And there are two main ways to do this. The first one is using a traditional keyer to key out your green screen and then place the background behind it. And the second method will also use our keyer, but this time using the corridor key as well. And this corridor key will be an AI-powered method of keying out our subject. And you will see the results of that are very good and much better than any other keyer out there. The problem with the second method, using the corridor key, is that it takes a while to render. Even on my 3090 RTX, I got about 24 gigabytes on that, and this took 2 hours for a clip of 40 seconds. So keep that in mind. If you're using it for small clips, it will work very good. But for longer takes, I will just use the normal keyer method. Okay, the first thing I'm gonna do is adding a delta keyer node. Hit Shift spacebar and then type in delta keyer. And I will use this as our main key. Hit 2 on the keyboard to select the delta keyer. And then in the key itself, you can select your background color. And then hit A on the keyboard to see an alpha channel. And just clip the values so it's fully black in the green screen and fully white in the foreground. To do that, we will go to our matte and clip the low and high threshold. And this will already give us a pretty decent result. But when you look closer to the fine details such as hair, it will not do a perfect job using this keyer method. So that's why we're going to use corridor key to have the best quality possible. So if you have the corridor key already installed, I will leave a link down below that you can follow along. But it goes like this. You just type in corridor key and then add it. Here we have all sorts of settings we can use, but I will just leave it at the standard settings for now. And how corridor key works, it first needs a reference in Fusion, and that's going to be our delta keyer. So we already keyed out our subject, so that is reference for our corridor key to refine it. And to make this node work, we will use our original footage in the orange input and our delta reference key in the green input. So hit Shift and add it to our media in, and then our delta keyer onto the corridor key. And then select the corridor key, and this rendering process could take a while depending on your graphics card, of course. But now when everything is rendered out, when I go to the alpha, you can see we have these fine hair details preserved and the edges look much more realistic, and yeah, it's just a perfect key in my opinion. In terms of the setting, I'll always use the screen color green. If you have a blue screen, you can choose blue, but for the quality, I will go auto. You can try out different methods, but I will always use the auto function. You can still tweak the matte, clip black and clip white options. And there's plenty of options we can tweak, and you can optimize this like crazy. But for the things I tested, this preset works pretty much for any shot in my case. The only thing I have to do is mask out this green screen, so it's only myself in the shot. So for that, I'm gonna hit Shift spacebar and add a background. And I will add this background on top of our corridor key and use it as a mask. So go to the merge and then choose mask and then select the background. Go to your polygon tool and just make a garbage matte of the green screen. And that is it for the keying. Now the only thing left to do is adding our background and then do some color corrections. For the background, I will use this image we just created in Weavy, and I will simply add it onto the merge. And then in the operator, I will choose under. And that way it's behind the subject, and we can scale it up so it fits the frame exactly. And let's also add a lens blur onto the footage. And we can even add a mask onto the blur. So it's less blurred in the foreground, just like so. And add some soft edge as well. And I will also add a color corrector node. And we can do some minor adjustments, but they make a really big difference. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to your footage, right click on the viewport, then go to views, subview, and then choose the color inspector. And this will give you this screen right here. And these are the pixel values. So if I hover over pixels, then you will see the value. Go to your darkest point of the shadow And here we see a value of 001. And when I go to our AI image, it will be much darker. It's saying 0002. So the only thing I need to add is some lift into our shadows, just a tiny bit. And now the value is exactly the same. Here we have 0.01, and here we also have 0.01. And I will also decrease the saturation a tiny bit, because AI images tend to be oversaturated and too much contrast. So when you dial it down in the compositing, it will match your footage much better. Now go to your color page, and now we will do our final grading that will blend everything together nicely. First off, I'm gonna add some contrast back into our shot, just like so. Just make a S-curve and make sure you don't clip the values. I will add a tiny bit of blue into our shadow, just like this. And then a bit of yellow, orange into the highlights. This is the before and this is the after. Makes it a bit more cinematic. And now we're gonna add a film look creator. And this is like the final icing of the cake. I will use the 35mm preset, then choose the cinematic option. And let's tone down the film look blend just a tiny bit. And let's also decrease the contrast. I will add some vignetting onto this footage. And I really like this halation effect. This will add some bloom and halation onto the edges. So I will decrease the radius slightly, so it's not too much. And we will also increase the bloom radius, so we have a bit more bloom. And in the grain option, I don't want any image defocusing. And let's increase the amount just a tiny bit. And you can already see this blends in much better than we had before, and it really grounds everything in one place. Now it's about fine-tuning it and seeing what works, what doesn't. What I also like is a prism blur effect. And this effect will just add some chromatic aberration in the edges, just like this, but don't overdo it. I will increase the strength. And then for the blur and aberration distance, we will turn this down a lot, just so we have a tiny bit of chromatic aberration, just like we have in a real lens. For the relighting, there are several options. We can use the native relighting tool within DaVinci Resolve, or use something like Switch Light or Switch X to get the best results possible. I will share much more in-depth tutorials inside the VFX Basecamp. If you're interested to join, link is in the description. Make sure to drop a comment or subscribe if you haven't already, and see you on the next one. Peace.